Tara na mga ka-friend! Very interesting tong pag-uusapan natin dito sa ka-friend Rejay TV. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell for my updated videos. Sige na, tara! Welcome na naman mga ka-friend. You will see a video clip from Karen Hudes, a former and well-experienced lawyer of World Bank, currently being a whistleblower of Marcos Gold for Humanity, talking about the network of global corporate control. Ito na po.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudes, and this show is the 34th segment in the DC TV series on the network of global corporate control. Today's segment is following up on a prayer of Ferdinand Marcos. If America fails, then the world is lost. At the end of World War II, Ferdinand Marcos, who was the lawyer for Jose Rizal, who was the superior general of the Jesuits at the time, put the world's international monetary gold reserves and other wealth into a trust for the benefit of humanity for 50 years. That trust is called the Global Debt Facility, and it's administered by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. The Board of Governors is 188 ministers of finance and development. I'm the lawyer for the Global Debt Facility. The Federal Reserve does not have the United States monetary gold reserves, and neither does the U.S. Treasury. The Global Debt Facility has put liens on the Federal Reserve in the 11 states where the Federal Reserve banks are located. That's because the Federal Reserve is bankrupt. That's because the Federal Reserve has actually issued over $200 trillion back in the 30s, and those bonds, they're called Treaty of Versailles bonds. They've been compounding interest. They're now worth over $2 quadrillion. So we don't owe the Fed money on country debt. It's actually that all of the country debt can be offset against this $2 quadrillion. The Fed's dishonesty in refusing to admit that people do not hold valid legal title to their property, that federal judges are sitting in bogus courts that are not the courts in Article 3 of the Constitution, because the United States federal government is being run according to a second secret constitution that the banks put into place in 1871, instead of the Constitution of 1789 that many people still think is in effect. People's opinion of the legal profession has tanked. So has their opinion of journalists. 2/3 say the national news media has a negative effect on the country. And just this past week, I tweeted something which was retweeted 52 times. I said, let's face it, none of the media is telling the truth. And the reason why is because the media is owned by this network of global corporate control. We know this for a fact because 3 mathematicians at the Federal Institute of Technology did an analysis of who owns the 43,000 companies on the capital markets, and they found out that it's actually all one company. This network of global corporate control is really one single conglomerate. That's because the board of directors of these companies have the same people on them in interlocking. It's called a bow tie arrangement. It's a very interesting study. I would recommend that you read it. It's been published since 2011, and it's really quite extraordinary that this has not received more press coverage. That's because the media, as I said, is bought and paid for by the network of global corporate control.
Ngayon naman, we will witness, mga ka-friend, ang interview with Karen Hudes regarding the Marcos Gold details at nasaan ang mga ginto na ito, and other details about the origin of this very controversial gold.
The World IMF are listed on a special agreement that was signed in 1950 about that. Assets, it's gold. It's more gold than people know about. It's over 1 million metric tons of gold. And the World Bank and the IMF have a special role to play, making sure that that money is spent to the benefit of humanity.
So where's the gold? A lot of people, some people believe that the gold in Fort Knox has disappeared. That's been in question for many years. Congressmen have attempted to get an audit of the gold in Fort Knox. So 1 million metric tons of gold is not something you can just hide. Where would you say that that gold is being stored?
400,000 metric tons are in the Central Bank of the Philippines. There's over 200,000 metric tons in Union Bank of Switzerland. And some of that gold is buried securely in the Philippines as well. Some of it is held in various banks, but the bulk of it is in the Philippines.
So the World Bank holds the note on that gold?
No, it is in a special trust account that was set up by Ferdinand Marcos, and the authorized signatory is a German banker lawyer by the name of Wolfgang Struck, who also lives in the Philippines.
So how do the people get the gold back? If it's their gold and it was taken by these bankers, how do we receive it?
That is the question. And they're just sitting there illegally and refusing to relinquish it. Part of the problem is that this gold is cloaked in secrecy. But in the last month, Wolfgang Struck has been publishing all of the documentation. So it's there for people to see. We have the originals. And people just have to make sure that the banks do what they're required to do, which is release the world's wealth.
Contact Phoenix Journal Review. Independent confirmation of the Philippines gold.
Throughout the Spanish occupation of the Maharlika, members of the Tagayan Italiano clan have been visiting Europe since some of their relatives were English and Austrian. From 1866 to 1898, Prince Julian Maglione Italiano, who became titleholder of OCT 01-4 in 1864, had also been frequenting the Vatican. In 1934, under Pope Pius XII, the Vatican negotiated with a member of the Filipino royal family, the Christian Italiano clan in the Maharlika. An agreement was reached that 640,000 metric tons of the Italiano gold would be lent to the Pope. This was part of that gold accumulated by the Southeast Asian Srivijaya and Majapahit Empire during its glorious reign of 900 years. In 1939, two members of the Italiano family and a Roman Catholic priest, Father Jose Antonio Diaz, brought the gold from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, to the Vatican. After doing this, Father Diaz went back to the Maharlika and resided in Cabanatuan City. After World War II, he facilitated the safe return of the 640,000 metric tons of gold from the Vatican to the Maharlika. Manuel Acuña Rojas, a relative of the Acuña Tagayan Italiano clan, then a congressman, and Bishop Enrique Sobrepena Sr., in the presence of attorney Lorenzo Tañada, received the gold in Manila. Having gained the trust and confidence of Father Diaz, the Italiano clan made him the main negotiator and trustee of their gold. Father Diaz, in turn, hired the services of attorney Ferdinand Marcos, then a highly recommended brilliant young lawyer, having attained notoriety when he successfully defended himself in the Nalundasan case in 1939. The Italiano clan paid commission to Father Diaz and attorney Marcos in gold, 30% from the principal of 640,000 metric tons. In 1949, the two richest men in the world were Father Jose Antonio Diaz and attorney Ferdinand Marcos. Between the two of them, they legitimately earned and owned 192,000 metric tons of gold. Ferdinand Marcos withdrew their share of the gold from the central bank and minted it, RPCB. Sometime later, Father Diaz and Marcos brought their gold to Switzerland, in the Swiss Bank Corporation in Zurich. The remaining 400,000 metric tons of Italiano gold is in the third-floor basement of the central bank minting plant in East Avenue, Quezon City. Gold for gold, dollar for dollar, this country, the Maharlika, is the richest country in the world. During a talk show in a U.S. TV the week following the bombing of the New York Twin Towers, President Bush was asked this question, which is the richest country in the world today? With a smile he said, the Philippines.
On April 9, 1973, Marcos said, "My earthly goods have been placed in the custody and for the disposition of the Marcos Foundation, dedicated to the welfare of the Filipino people."